Hello, it is Sunday, April the 10th, and we are back home. Obviously, I'm in my classroom. The trip was amazing, and so many things happened. I will say that I feel really good about Ainsley going to Colorado next year. It's kind of hard to let your baby go that far away, and I'm feeling really excited for her, and I'm feeling like things are coming together, and it's going to be fine. I'll tell you a quick update on the land loan. We decided not to purchase the land in that development at this time, but everything's good. It's not a bad thing. Life is good. I'm feeling really positive about things. It was nice to have some time away, and I'm looking forward to seeing my students again. I'm planning on a lot of socio-emotional learning activities, or SEL activities, in the last few months, and I'm going to start them this week. So I really feel like at this point, I've given all of my students a really good foundation for their grade level. And of course, we have a few things that I still need to kind of like wrap up in my teaching, close some of the gaps, some of the holes, and then we need to review. But my main goal over the next couple of months of school that's left is to work on their attitudes towards achievement, because I feel like if they don't have the right attitude, they will go into testing and they won't show what they've actually learned. So I'm really going to be working on attitudes. I'm going to be working on, having a positive mindset, having a growth mindset, celebrating the achievements that they've made, looking at what they still need to do, making sure that they, take the test seriously by understanding that it's a way for them to be proud of themselves and, hold themselves in high esteem. I think that's one of the things that's the hardest to do as a teacher is to actually, give your kids that sense that learning is not just a task that we have to do, but it's something that you should take pride in. So that's what I'm going to be working on over the next few weeks. And I'm hoping that by taking some time to do that, it will also help curb behavior issues, because the kids know when you take time to do things like that, you care about them. And so some conversations will naturally take place as a result of those types of activities. And I'll have an opportunity to kind of I feel like trying to get through everything this year and make sure that we did things with a growth mindset and with a chance for them to, learn, relearn, test, retest, all of that. It meant that I was constantly having to really set the bar high for my students. And so especially since January, I feel like I've really turned up the fire on them. And I think some of them are rebelling a little bit because of how much I've been making them toe the line and do some major work. But it's what needed to happen in order for us to get everything done with a growth mindset. If I was just going to touch on everything once and not go back to it and be you get what you get, and you either passed or you failed, then I could have slowed down a little bit and not been so hard on them and, push them so much. But in order to make sure that they're actually doing things at a mastery level of 80% or better, I have to turn up the fire in January, and it's just the way it is. So yeah, but it's a good time now because I literally have almost nothing left in all three of my grade levels that I have to teach that's new material. I just need to go back, touch up, and fill in gaps, and maybe add some little fun things in for a review that they haven't done already. That's all I need to do. So I have time now to, loosen up a little bit. Hopefully by the time we get to testing, the kids will have a good attitude about the testing and try their best. That's all I can ask for. So. It is now Thursday, April the 14th. And we are on our final day before spring break. And let me tell you, we are ready to go. This morning we had the 5th graders that are coming up to 6th grade next year come over and see what we were doing. And my classroom is just kind of a total disaster right now. And I didn't care. I just didn't care. But I had something little for them. I'm going to show you an SEL activity that I chose from the Sanford Harmony program. The Sanford Harmony program is something that our school system is using. We use it for the elementary grades, but there are activities in it that are appropriate for middle school. And so I'm picking and choosing which ones I'm doing. So this activity, I want you to know is available for free, and I will link it down below. All of the Sanford Harmony materials are available for free when you sign up for their free account. And there's stuff for every grade level up through sixth grade. But like I said, the sixth grade materials really can be adapted for middle school pretty readily. But I like to weave them into my curriculum. So I'm going to show you how I did that this week. I really love this activity. I felt like it went along very well with what we've been studying, and it helps the students think about perspectives, which in science is an important thing when you're talking about the issues that surround new inventions and technologies.
So this is the Sanford Harmony program. This is the dashboard. This is what it looks like when you first go in. I have chosen Unit 2. I think there are like 5 or 6 units that are available for free on here. This one is all about empathy and critical thinking. One of the problems that I have been experiencing in my classroom is that my students don't seem to understand, some of them, that there are multiple perspectives or ways of looking at things. So some of the arguing that occurs when you're trying to talk to them about other ways that they could be doing things, I feel like it's stemming from them not being able to see outside of themselves. We know that with COVID, with students staying home, they had less socialization. Some of the maturity process that's natural for being in school, so many days in a year, it was kind of stunted as a result of this. And so we're dealing with behaviors that, when we look at them, we think this is not appropriate for this age level, but we have to remind ourselves, hey, these kids have not been in school, like, to have as much training, to have as much guidance as they normally do. And to top it all off, some of the parents were working, jobs or whatever out of the house. So they didn't have like their, home environment the same as normal to be able to receive that from their parents either. So it's a difficult time, but we can combat this with simple activities in the classroom. In my 8th grade class, I have been teaching about genetics, and I've been teaching about biotechnology. And biotechnology naturally lends itself empathy and critical thinking, because you might think, oh, this is just a great technology because we can do all of these amazing things that we're never able to do before. But biotechnology raises a lot of issues. You may have heard of some of the arguments against GMOs. GMOs were developed to try to produce crops that were disease resistant and pest resistant and heat resistant. And, those are all good things to do, but also they're finding some health risks with some of the GMOs. And so some people are encouraging others not to eat anything that's been created using GMOs. So, that's one example. But when you talk about genetics and you're talking about cloning or, doing designer babies, it sounds like a great idea from one standpoint, but what are some of the other issues that it creates? And so we began to talk about this. And one thing that we discussed is the story of the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks is a very important person to biology and to cell theory, because she had a very rare type of cervical cancer in the 1940s, and she was operated on. They tried to save her life. She died. And during the time of the operation, her family was asked if they could take some of her cells and use them for research to try to help other people that might have that type of cancer. Her family declined, but the doctors secretly took the cells anyway and used them to reproduce them and sold them because they were growing at such a fast rate and they were staying alive in cultures, which is something that they had never been able to do before. And so that story really brings home to the students the idea of, okay, there's one way of looking at this. This is an advance in scientific research, right? That could be great for millions of people. In fact, they use these cells still today. Other generations of the cells that have been produced because they just kept living on and on and on. So they're using these cells for research on all different things. So the cells from her body actually helped with some chemotherapy treatments, developing those. It helped with, different medicines. It helped, they took some of the cells to the moon to see how they would react to being up there, all different kinds of things they've done with these cells. So it sounds good, but then you have the issue of the family that they did not give permission for this to happen. It happened secretly. And then years later, they found out that scientists had been making money off of her cells that had been grown in the laboratory. Papers had been published about the research on these cells, and the family wasn't aware of what was going on. So this raises the issue of putting yourself in other people's shoes. And that's something that middle schoolers have a really hard time doing, because during that time of life when they are gaining independence, they tend to revert sort of back to that me. It's all about what I think. It's all about what's right for me, instead of thinking about, other people around them as well and how their actions are affecting others. So to tie that in, I took this activity from Sanford Harmony. It's called Walking in Someone Else's Shoes. This activity, it can be done in one class period, but you could split it up over several if you just wanted to do little parts of it, or do it over, as a beginning to your class or something, or a little extra in between, if as a sponge activity, if you had some extra minutes. But basically, you talk to the students about why is it important to understand other people's feelings and points of view, have a little conversation about what empathy means, and give an example. And then I didn't do the entire lesson. There's actually other parts to it, but the part that I focused on was I used these conversation cards. They're called WISE conversation cards. And I had students, I read this scenario to the students. So here's scenario one. Your teacher asked you to do a role play in front of the class. A, you're excited because you enjoy acting and speaking in front of the class. B, you wished your teacher hadn't asked you because you get nervous speaking in front of the class. Or C, you were excited to do the role play, but nervous that you might mess up in front of the class. Instead of having students just tell me A, B, or C, I actually posted a poster in each corner of the room, A, B, and C, and I had students get up and move like a four corners activity to the answer choice that they felt matched the way they feel the best. And some of these scenarios, they weren't exactly sure. And I'm like, you have to pick the one that's the closest. You can't go in between two. So the cool thing about doing it this way that I really loved was that the students could see how many students were standing at different places. Sometimes you would have one or two at an answer choice. And I made the comment to students, hey, look, there's only two people here. Does that mean that they're wrong? And, we came to the conclusion, no, because the way you feel is the way you feel about something. So then you were able to talk to the students about, hey, just because someone doesn't see eye to eye with you doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means they have a different perspective. And you can become a better person by taking time to listen to what their perspective is and understand them. That doesn't mean you have to change your mind about your perspective. Maybe sometimes you might, but most of the time you might still have the same viewpoint afterwards, but you'll appreciate the other person more. So it's really teaching the students to get along with people that are different than them. It also is really good for bringing up conversations about, hey, remember when, we had a class argument about this and I was trying to tell you one way of looking at it and you guys were not listening to me, so try to maybe not make it about a specific student, but if there was a time you can think of in your classroom when there was like a big issue and, the majority of the students were arguing with you, the teacher. So you can say, becoming a grown-up involves being able to see the perspectives and the viewpoints of other people. Being a kind person means accepting, even though you don't agree with someone, that's their position and it's not wrong. It's just their position. Of course, there are sometimes when things are going to be black and white, but many times there are multiple ways of looking at it. It also gave me the opportunity to talk to students a little bit about, when you are arguing with someone who is an adult who's trying to correct you, you need to stop, take a breath, try to listen to what they have to say, because they may be able to show you something that's a way of thinking that you haven't ever considered before. But as long as you're arguing, you're not able to hear and relate to the point of view of the adult. And we also talked about how relationships that you have with your friends are different than relationships that you have with authority figures, such as a teacher or a parent. Because when you're dealing with an adult whose job is to take care of you, the reason they're there is because they have more life experience than you, and they know more about the long-term consequences of the choices that you're making right now. When my personal children were middle schoolers, I didn't allow my kids to just be kids. We're here as parents and caregivers, teachers, adults in their lives to guide them and direct them towards maturity. And so if we just excuse it with, that's just the way kids are, kids will be kids, boys will be boys, that's middle school girls for you, whatever, no matter what age group, then we're basically telling the students that they have a pass for acting like that. And that means that in the long run, we're preventing them from maturing into who they could be if we held them to that higher standard of this isn't the way that we do things. And this is a great way for you to have these conversations with students, and it's not directed towards any one individual. It's just for all of the students. All the students can benefit from thinking like this because, at this age group especially, but sometimes little kids too are this way, definitely, where they only think about their own point of view. And it really takes someone to specifically point it out, but it has to be a neutral situation in order for them to be able to learn it. If it's emotionally charged, it's their situation, it's going to be more difficult for them to understand the point you're trying to make and to be able to accept it and take it in. So this is a great activity. I hope that you will find it useful in your own classroom. I will link it down below. And if you have any questions about anything else that has to do with the Sanford Harmony program, I've been using, different SEL activities throughout the year as they integrated well with my curriculum and with the things that my students needed personally based on their behaviors that I saw in the classroom. So that's it for today. I hope you all are enjoying your time. I have just a few more hours until spring break. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of my community. As always, don't forget to work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. Bye-bye.